The Dragon Lord's Consort. A letter from a lord. The day had started out like any other. Ponyville was in its rare, calm, and peaceful manner. The foals were at school, the shops ran high and low down the street, and every pony was bustling around their daily routine lives. The same could be said at the Castle of Friendship, as Twilight Sparkle and company, minus Pinkie Pie, whom was visiting her family for the day, were sitting around the map of Equestria as Twilight was writing down new info on dragons and their anatomy. "That sounds awesome!" cried out Rainbow Dash, hovering in the air in excitement. "Dragons have competitions too!" Twilight nodded in agreement. "Yes, they do. According to Lord Ember, they hold one for strength, hoarding, speed, and lava diving." "Oh my," spoke Fluttershy. "That sounds dangerous." "No more than a pony diving into a swimming pool," commented Applejack. "Dragons can handle that sort of stuff." She waved her hoof. "True enough," continued Twilight. "Spike himself fell into a pool and he was fine. Dragons have amazingly tough skin, and fire is just as natural and safe to them as water to us. But just like us, them having too much can be a problem." "So what else have you learned from Lord Ember?" asked Starlight. She was looking over the notes and scrolls sent by Princess Ember. "Well, I know it's only been 2 weeks since the call, but Princess Ember only sends me a few bits of info every other day. So far we've learned about their competitions, their life cycles, that type of food they eat." "Meep." Fluttershy quickly closed her eyes with her hooves and shook her head, hoping to not hear it. "Which we can always talk about later." She laughed sheepishly, quickly trying to soothe Fluttershy. "Oh, about never," quiped Rarity. She went over to comfort Fluttershy. "Poor dear, even when we have dragons as our allies now, she'll never get over her fears." "I don't think any of us would get over our fears of dragons, Sugar Cube," commented Applejack. "I mean, heck, we have them as friends, or more or less, allies, but I think that we may still look at them with some fear. They're, after all, dragons." "Pfft, I ain't afraid of no dragons," spoke out Rainbow Dash. "Especially if they ever challenge me to a game of speed. They'll be weeping when I leave them in the dust." She hovered into the air as the room felt drained, knowing all their air is going to her head, and ego. The others either gave her glares or unamused looks before focusing back on Twilight. "Anyways," Starlight spoke, trying to clear the air. "So, with Lord Ember as an ally and you being the first princess to interact with a Dragon Lord, does that mean we, being Equestria and the dragons, are on good terms?" Twilight unfortunately gave a shake of her head. "No, being a Dragon Lord means that Ember rules the dragons, but she doesn't control all of them. They're, all in likelihood, could just fly to Equestria and..." She paused, seeing the fear return to Fluttershy. Well, for now we know that Ember is trying to maintain peace between Equestria and the dragons. Let's just hope that they stick that way, all of them, which I'm pretty sure that they will." She was desperately trying to keep her friend from having a total freak-out. The others decided not to add on and tried to move away from the conversation. "So, Rarity?" asked Starlight. "How did your business do with your new... I'm sorry, what were they called again?" Rarity finally managed to calm Fluttershy before looking towards Starlight. "Huh? Oh! Why, they are going fabulous. Every pony from here to Canterlot loves my new line of..." A poof of blue fire appeared in front of them. Actually, it appeared in front of Twilight. The scroll had a blue dragon footprint on it, and when she realized who it was from, she squealed in delight and quickly snatched it out of the air. "Ooh, another letter from Lord Ember. I wonder what it is this time. Schools? Literature? Science?" Rainbow Dash and Applejack gave her a deadpan stare, while Starlight gave her a rather confused look. Twi, I don't think that dragons have literature, or science, or schools, for that matter." Twilight gave her a look. "Hey, you might never know. For all we know that what we saw in there in the Dragonlands isn't even the whole amount of dragons on Equus, let alone Equestria. They're intelligent creatures. How else would they learn to speak, write, or even learn basic math?" Starlight was about to comment, but couldn't. Never thought of it that way." Twilight nodded with a knowing smile. "It's okay, Starlight. We learn something new every day. Like today. Spike, we got another letter from Lord Ember." Despite the huge castle and the many rooms that remained unoccupied, Spike had quickly heard, nearly throwing the doors open with glee, and practically ran to the table, sitting in his chair next to Twilight. "I'm here! Open it! Open it!" "Okay, okay," she laughed. "We'll see what new info Ember has sent. Though the scroll is smaller this time." Maybe she didn't have time," he quipped. "She is, after all, Dragon Lord and probably has too many duties to attend to." "Puh," Rainbow Dash chuckled. "He said duties as in dragons having duties or any responsibility to take care of. All they do is just lounge around and lay like the lizards they are." Everyone around gave her another group glare, especially Spike, who huffed, crossing his arms. "Racist much, Dash?" Rainbow Dash quickly realized her statement and looked at all of her friends who were glaring at her. She gave a nervous chuckle, rubbing the back of her head. Sorry." Twilight cleared her throat and focused on the letter. "Alright, let's see here." She paused. Putting the letter down, she looked at Fluttershy. You don't have to listen to this, Fluttershy." She gave a small nod. "Okay, thank you." "Relax, darling. I can speak to you while they get their info. Come along now. We might even go to the spa later. Ta-ta, every pony. Let us know what new info or Lord Ember has sent to us." With that, the two walked out of the room, closing the door after them. Now that that was settled, Twilight cleared her throat again and brought the scroll before her. Spike leaned in from the chair to read. "Dear Princess Twilight of Equestria, I know that I was supposed to send you some information about dragon anatomy as well as what a dragon is. However, I will be speaking of some of that, but on a different type of it." "Huh? What does she mean of a different type?" asked Spike. Twilight gave a shake of her head. "I don't know. Let's keep reading." "With what you and Spike had done to help me get the Bloodstone Scepter, I could not thank you enough for it, and with it, we can keep our peace between our races. However, my father has told me something of recent about the Bloodstone and what I inherit from it." "Inherit?" asked Rainbow Dash. "It means that the Bloodstone must have passed something along with it. Probably more than just a title or being the Dragon Lord of all dragons," commented Twilight. She read on. "What I have to say could only be spoken one-on-one, though more specifically to Spike. This matter might be of concern to him too. I know it is short notice, but I ask that you allow us to save passage to you in Equestria. We're right outside of the borders and don't wish to cause a panic to your kin. We could be there in less than an hour if you give us permission. I implore that we speak of this right away. Your new friend, Lord Ember." The room was silence. The news was indeed sudden, and the fact that it was just about to happen, Twilight and her friends were left speechless. Except for Spike, who seemed excited. "Cool! Ember's gonna visit us! Here, in Equestria!" No pony shared his enthusiasm or joy as he bounded in place. Twilight shook her head before looking at Spike. "Spike, I know that you and Lord Ember are friends now, but she did say that this is urgent. Maybe this is something serious." "But how could she be serious? I mean, she did say we're all on good terms." "Yes, but I don't think that we should jump to conclusions just yet. We need to prepare for their arrival. I am going to send a reply back, and hopefully we can allow them to come through without much of a panic." She turned to Rainbow Dash. "Rainbow, do you think you could warn the mayor and the locals about it? Try to say that the dragons are coming, but not as hostile." Rainbow quickly gave a salute. "You got it, Twi." With that, she flew out of the room in a blink of an eye, leaving the rest. "Applejack, I need you to go and warn Rarity and Fluttershy. I know that Fluttershy won't want to see the dragons, so make sure that she's at home and with her animal friends, then bring Rarity back with us." "Sure thing, Sugar Cube." And with that, she took off the same way as Rainbow Dash did. That left Starlight. "Starlight, I'm gonna need to send a letter to the princess informing of the situation. Hopefully she can let us borrow some guards to, keep every pony from becoming paranoid and causing a panic. Can you go and wait for their arrival, informing them of the situation?" "Of course, Twilight." With a flash of purple, she was gone, leaving just only Spike and Twilight. Spike had lost his earlier enthusiasm and looked at Twilight, who was gathering a new scroll to write in. Twi? Yeah?" she asked, though she kept her eyes on writing the scroll. "She says that this has to do with me. Should I be worried?" Twilight turned to him. "She did say it involved you, but I think that's maybe something to do with the new dragon anatomy. Maybe for only your ears only, maybe?" She didn't sound assuring, but nonetheless, he nodded. They both quickly began the arrival of new dragons. Twilight sent the letters and Spike went to go get some gems for their guests. Within the hour, the little town of Ponyville was almost deserted with guards patrolling around and few select ponies to observe, at their own risks. The main six, not including Fluttershy, but Starlight as her temporary fill-in, had all met just a bit outside of Twilight's castle on near-empty fields. Guards were positioned, mostly scattered around to keep ponies from wandering into the meeting and to keep the peace. They were told not to carry any weapons or respond to anything that goes on between the princess and the dragons. Twilight waited in anxiousness as their guests were soon to arrive. Spike was all but excited to see his dragon friends again, and he'd brought out the best rubies, ones that he'd been saving for a special occasion, like this one, and hoping to share them with his new companion. Every pony was watching the skies, waiting for their guest, and Dash was the first to spot them. "Yo! 3 dragons coming from the east!" All eyes turned to the eastern sky and did see 3 draconic shapes flying right towards them. Twilight and Spike seemed happy, however. There was one that seemed to instantly turn them sour. "Is that Garble flying with her?" Twilight asked, in a bit of panic. The others quickly stood closer together, and Starlight seemed to begin running through a number of spells in her head to defend them if necessary. The dragons neared, and Spike seemed more nervous now as he saw their looks. Garble seemed like his same old self, angered and humiliated, knowing that he was flying towards Spike. Ember, however, seemed more concentrated on him, and her eyes, even at this distance, seemed to carry worry and sadness? The dragons touched down. The third dragon was the pink dragon Spike had saw earlier that day. Judging by the armor that they were all wearing, Garble and the pink one were wearing almost the exact same armor, while Ember wore her armor she used at the event, though without the helmet. All the ponies bowed, even Spike, though he wanted to run to Ember and give her a hug. Her face was serious, even if she tried to hide it well. "Greetings, Princess Twilight. Spike, friends of Equestria. I humbly thank you for allowing us into your country." Twilight walked forward to meet her. "I'm glad to have you here with us, Lord Ember." Ember didn't acknowledge the mistake. Rather, she turned to Spike. "I'm also glad to see you, Spike." "Hey, Ember," he said, a bit more happier toned, though it quickly dropped when he turned to Garble, who kept giving him a glare. Garble. Spike. Spike was surprised by this hard but even tone. Despite the hate for him, Garble spoke as if he was forced to be nice, or at least not in a mainline way. "Garble," warned Ember. Garble muttered something incoherent before lowering his head. She then turned to Spike. "He is now my bodyguard. As punishment for his earlier actions to both of us, he has to do what I say when I say it. If not, well, he knows what will happen." The threat was almost deafening to his ears, but he didn't say anything to react. But you could say he began to shake. In anger or fear, Spike couldn't tell. Ignoring him, Spike turned back to Ember. "So, what was so important that you had to come to Equestria, Ember?" Ember paused, knowing that Spike was one of the few who could get away without calling her Lord or Mistress. She then spoke in a leveled voice. "I believe that this is better suited inside, though maybe not in front of your friends." The other looked confused, and Spike seemed upset. "But they're my friends, Ember. Whatever you tell me, surely they can hear, and if not, then I know I have to tell them later." Ember gave a glance to them before sighing. "Of course. Still, I rather do this inside so that your guards are not constantly watching us. If that is fine by you, Princess Twilight." Twilight nodded. "Of course, come in." The interior of the castle seemed to have stunned the dragons. Even Garble, through judging his eyes, looked at the crystal wall with hunger and greed. They entered the cutie map room where all the mares sat in their chairs. Spike had quickly brought out the snacks for his guest. Giving his biggest ruby to Ember, she accepted it, though something about him giving it to her really made her cheeks go red and even mumble a thank you. He gave another set to the pink dragoness, which she almost took without hesitation. When he approached Garble, Ember spoke out. "I don't believe Garble should retrieve a treat, Spike." Garble wanted to retort, but a single look from Ember got him to stay quiet. However, Spike looked at the dejected Garble and still handed him a decent-sized ruby. Looking at it, he eyed Spike, waiting for a snark, comment, or something, but Spike just etched it closer to him, hoping he would take it. Reaching out slowly, he took the ruby in his claws, and with a gulp and a hearty, shaky breath, he managed to say, Thank you. It almost looked painful for him to say it. Almost. With a smirk, she then took a single bite of the large ruby, giving it a few chomps before swallowing it. She looked at it, feeling almost belittled by how a large ruby was given easily by a dragon. Was there something wrong with the ruby? Asked Spike. Ember turned to him and shook her head. Nothing. There was nothing. That is the thing. I'm still accustomed to dragon rules, Spike. Dragons don't share their hoard unless with blood family, and even one as so gracious and delicious as that. Spike gave a smile. That's what friends do, though, Ember. We share. We might not be blood family, but we are still friends and family. Ember kept her gaze at him, her expression almost neutral. However, she gave him a small smile. Your friends have made you wise, even beyond most dragons, Spike. Not many can have a heart as big or as generous as yours. Spike smiled sheepishly at the comment. Garble, meanwhile, withheld another remark. But hopefully that generosity of yours will be an example to the rest of our kin. What do you mean? With a cleared throat, she spoke loudly so the others could hear. It has come to my attention that when I got the Bloodstone Scepter, I was crowned Lord of all dragons in Equestria. That also came with a list of other things that included rules, blessings, more hoards, and so on in my name, as I took the throne from my father. Being a lord, I can ask for just about anything, and I shall receive it. Heh, sounds awesome if you ask me, commented Rainbow Dash. Though the whole rules and all sounds like a total bore. Twilight was about to angrily retort at Dash when Ember spoke first. Indeed it is, and that is something even I have little control over. Some rules I still have to listen to. Like what? Asked Starlight. When the scepter was first created, began Ember, it was meant to be a tool to use to control dragons, but then it became a symbol, and then an emblem of leadership. And with that leadership, the Dragon Lord in charge had to control the dragons. They had to make sure that the dragons could be set free, but controlled enough so they are terrorizing other species. Ponies included. Now, other rules include in that order to stay in charge as Dragon Lord, I must commit myself to dragon needs or blessings. I also must take courtship among one of my fellow kin in order to continue my rule. Silence ran through the room, and Twilight quickly broke it. Okay, but what does this have to do with Equestria or us? Ember gave her a sad gaze. Not you, not Equestria. Him. She pointed a claw at Spike. What? Me? Him? The others cried out in surprise. Ember nodded, and the earlier twinge in her cheeks returned. Yes. In accordance to the rules, I have to choose a life mate in order to keep my rule as Dragon Lord. The rule also states that if I cannot choose a mate among my own kin, it will be chosen by the first dragon that I have come in contact with. That was next to me at the time of my claim of throne. In this case, I chose no other dragon in the area, and Spike was the first dragon to actually touch the scepter and handed it to me. The magical flash that was seen wasn't just a message saying that I was Dragon Lord, but I would find my chosen life mate. She paused. Spike was just staring at her in awe and shock. She then came close to him and held out her claw. With an unsure look, she spoke to him. Spike, I have chosen you to be my life mate and my consort. Will you accept? No pony moved, no pony said anything, and were all to be stunned or dazed to say anything. Spike wasn't even breathing at this point, as he was too shocked to answer, as the same was with any pony else. Rainbow was the first to respond before coming close to Spike and speaking softly. Hey, Spike, I think this is like a wedding proposal, and she asked if you want to get hitched. So, what are you gonna say? Spike didn't say anything, and finally the lack of her head went straight to his as he fell back, blacking out.